Peace and blessings, family. Welcome to Sunday Sitting with Sisters. It's your girl, your sister, Rolanda, Mama Ro, Queen Ro for some people, and just Rolanda for others. And I'm joined today. I'm so excited about this conversation today because this is a conversation we should definitely be having in our communities. And I think sometimes some of us, and I always shouldn't use words like some, don't even know that we got Black women on all fronts making it happen for us in health. So sometimes you don't have to be relying on other people if their stuff is truthful. I don't know. It's a conspiracy. Well, you got Black women. When Black women is in charge, it's going to get done. It's going to get handled. So I hope that you will enjoy this conversation. And I'm going to introduce some of the women that's on the line. We're going to be joined by 2 more people, but we're going to start with what we have now. So right next to me is Sister Javon Muhammad. And Sister Javon Muhammad, hold on. We got one more person. Chris Ann?
Hi.
Okay, we just went live, so just hold the phone and we'll get you in. So we're starting with Sister Javon Muhammad. Sister Javon Muhammad is she's the CEO of the Southwest Louisiana Center for Health Services. And how many clinics do you all have, Javon?
5.
But also, Javon also was the former CEO of Marin City Health and Wellness. I watch her do some incredible work there. And she's also a midwife by trade as well. So we got Sister Javon Muhammad. Then next to her, we have Sister Toni Hill, who is the executive director of the Northeast Mississippi Birthing Project, right? But also she's a traditional midwife at Bloomington Moon Midwifery. Anything I left out of there? Who's another? These are all extraordinary women. So I'm probably going to say that after everybody. But did I miss out on anything?
No, you're good. I mean,
Okay. And also with the 2 I just introduced, both of them live on farms, which I think is quite interesting. So I just had to say that because I got like a little farm in the back and I had to pull out weeds yesterday and I wasn't feeling it. Okay. So I'll have the snake troubles. And then down in the corner, we have dear sister friend here, Chris Ann Smith. She's a life coach, a nana, a community engagement specialist, and a doula. And another queen mother up in here, another extraordinary woman with her. Did I leave out anything on you, Chris Ann?
That's enough for now. It's enough.
Okay, great. And then last but not least so far is Dr. Career Perry. Did I say it right? Okay, She is the president and founder of National Birth Equity Collaborative. And also she was the first time I met a Black woman that was a doctor that was young and vibrant. So I was like, wow, like that's a doctor? So
I will never forget y'all coming to my house. That feels like a million years ago now.
I know. But I was like, wow, like you were just jamming it on the ball as you all are. So I'm so grateful for this conversation. And so as we get into this conversation, looking at birth equity and maternal and child health as it relates to Black women, could any of y'all tell me what is the status of this, the state of that for Black women in the United States? Because all of you from different places, we have Louisiana House, we have Mississippi, we have Philly, New York gonna be on in a minute. So we kind of have like a good representation. What's the status? What's going on in that area?
I'll let the medical people go first.
I was just going to say a word for the Bay Area because I'm a new transplant to Louisiana, but I'm really from the San Francisco Bay Area. And I was just talking to Kiki the other day, and midwives out there right now are in their moment because people are afraid to go to the hospital because of everything that was going on with COVID. So, and really, I think more so not being able to bring support to the hospital. And so that made people feel a little bit discouraged about going to the hospital. And so they have been choosing midwives finally. Some of them have been choosing midwives, and Kiki says they're booked for the next umpteen months. Like she's just very busy. So I think, in the middle of this pandemic is a great moment and opportunity for midwives to remind women, particularly Black midwives and Black women, that this is a really good option for them, a safe option, as long as they fall into, a healthy pregnancy, low risk pregnancy. This is a great option. And to teach them about how it's safe, how it works better for the family, just a good opportunity. I think that the outcomes for our community haven't really shifted. Nothing has changed. I mean, while everything goes on, no matter what happens, Black women continue to have babies, and we continue to have, poor outcomes in many instances. And so we just keep trying to fight to be at the forefront. Sometimes being a midwife looks like just fighting to be at the forefront of the conversation to share this other option. And I think that continues. I did that for years in the Bay Area. I'm here in Southwest Louisiana. I'm not going to say it's the same conversation, because midwifery it's not in the same position that it is in California, but some components of that conversation is the same, just fighting for the right to take care of women and do a good job. So I don't know if that answered your question, but the midwives I've been talking to right now are excited about being busy.
And you know what, Javon, I appreciate you saying that, because we're having the same situation in Philly. And the dilemma for us is a lot of the African immigrant women that have been coming to us for prenatal care, they're horrified of the idea of actually going into a hospital because they're afraid of catching the virus. So it's a real dilemma for us, because we are a federally qualified health center that has full spectrum prenatal care. But a lot of these women have not had any midwifery services, and some of them are in their third trimester. So it's a dilemma for us in Philadelphia as well.
Well, you have an amazing midwife out there named Asasia, and I will connect y'all.
Okay. I love that, sister.
I know one thing that's been an issue for us. Mississippi does not have regulations for midwifery. So we practice illegally. And I'm one of 2 Black midwives in the state of Mississippi. And so we, of course, are bombarded with phone calls out the wazoo. And for us, because there is no regulation, there's also no insurance reimbursement. And so people are basically forced to do unassisted births. And they're doing that versus hiring a midwife because they literally can't afford one, but they have a great amount of fear moving into the hospital space for various reasons. I mean, there was already fear there because there's all this stuff about how we're dying in the hospitals. And so people are becoming more aware of that. And so then they want to have their people there. And now they're in a situation where they're forced to get a COVID test 3 days before they're induced. So their birth plan is pretty much out the window. And it's already in a place where our healthcare sucks. So, we're already 20 years behind everybody. And then you get into a situation like this where you can't even bring your people to the hospital with you. And so we're in a pretty dire situation. I know like midwives all over the country. I'm totally booked. I mean, I cannot, it's impossible to fit in one more person without me just missing all the births. And so it's disheartening to me to see, because I know what's happening in the hospital systems. I know that some hospital systems are not made for us. They're not by us, and they're not safe spaces for us to birth. And so it hurts my heart that I can't take all these clients either, because we don't have the capacity to do so. Nor, I mean, like, basically, it's a whole old run thing. You can't catch all the babies for free. The car got to go. And you gotta put gas in it, and the midwife gotta be fed, and the family gotta be fed, and the goats need milk. So like everything gotta, move. So it's very disheartening seeing that in the state that we're in.
I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Dr. Joy. I was going to say.
Hey, I just want to. So thank y'all so much for all of that. I think structurally, we have been dying, as you all know, in childbirth across the United States. And we have been trying to fight for a system that allows for people to birth where they wish, because this whole policing Black women's bodies and telling us where we can go, and that's not new. COVID is just exposing it now. So now white women are participating. So now you see this kind of spillover of what we've been dealing with for a long time around even I heard the language around high risk. It worries me that we don't really have a definition for high risk. For a lot of my OBGYN colleagues, when they see a Black person, that in and of itself is high risk. So they would never say that any Black birthing person has control enough of their body, of their life to birth at home, because they don't think we have the capacity to do anything. And so I worry about the state of birthing in the United States not changing until we believe, and as a country, as a world, and the value of Black birthing people, that we can make decisions for ourselves, that we do have the capacity to make choices. So a lot of the midwives are really busy right now, and a lot of them are busy because so many white folks are now leaving the healthcare system that we've known was traumatic to us for a long, long time. So now they're being traumatized too, and they have the wealth and the capacity to move into a space and pay cash for things, and pushing folks out who've been being traumatized. We were overrepresented in home births in the first place compared to white women. In the United States, Black people were. And the reason is because we already knew that hospitals were traumatic and racist. And so now we have COVID happening, and you see even more of that happening. So we have an opportunity to acknowledge all of those truths, that yes, healthcare is racist. Yes, hospitals are racist. Yes, people deserve to have options that they choose, because that decreases our risk. And being high risk is not because I'm Black. The high risk is because you are racist and because the system is racist.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So with your birth justice work, what is that? Because I think some Black folks, we hear that word and we see a bunch of white people out there and other people, but we're like, birth justice, like you know, what is birth justice? and
I don't want to speak up for what is birth justice, because I get myself in trouble a lot when I start talking. But I want to say, for me, my work, the work of birth justice for me looks like making sure that there's access when I'm in control of these dollars. And so, you know, in Marin City, we did the work, some of it together, to bring the birth center to FQHC patients so that it could be something accessible to Medicaid women. And we ended up opening one of 3 FQHC birth centers in the country. And so for us, that opened up birth to more low-income women. Particularly, we were after Black women and wanted to make sure that women on Medicaid could have that experience. And so here I am now in Louisiana trying to start that same work. And I feel like it's been the work of my, the last 20 years for me, making sure that women have access to, to alternative places to birth so that they feel whole. And I'm doing that here. And so that's the part of work that I do in birth justice.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to add, I honestly hesitated because I don't, when I think of birth justice, I think of advocates who are Black folks who are on the ground. I think of the doulas and the midwives that I know who've been really fighting for freedom and bodily autonomy in birthing. And so as an OBGYN, I think I sit in a privileged place where I don't want to call myself a birth justice advocate as much as high up in the hierarchy of white supremacy that I got to in order to be an OBGYN. It's just far away. I feel like for me, it would be like the same when you mentioned Ms. Rolanda, that you see a lot of white folks saying birth justice. For me, as an OBGYN, talking about birth justice, considering my training and where I sit, would just not be appropriate. So I don't usually lead with birth justice. I talk about it and I try to uplift the advocates who are doing the work on the ground, who really, that's their everyday life. I've been told I should stop saying that and that I do work in birth justice, but it just feels, trying to honor that I recognize I sit in a place of privilege, even when that privilege is trying to fight me and kill me, that I'm still sitting here.
Right on.
I could just say, from my point of view as a doula, a large part of birth justice is advocacy. A large part of it is advocacy, because a lot of women, particularly if they're going through their first pregnancy, don't realize that they have a right to ask for what they want. And then you go to these facilities that silence us, that discourage us from speaking up, and don't allow us to use our voice. So a lot of the women that we're seeing in Philadelphia benefit from having doulas, because doulas actually provide a lot of advocacy around this whole birth situation we're going through right now.
Right on. Dr. Joya, what made you do the work you're doing now, coming from being a OBGYN?
Well, some of it is stuff I learned with you all, with the Birthing Project, like doing the work, working in community, taking what I've learned as an OBGYN. When you're trying to practice medicine and every structure, every system is fighting against you, and everywhere you go. So we have this joke as an OBGYN. Can y'all still see me?
You started,
Okay,
you
so
started-
GYN, when you're sitting, when you're training, and when you're as a Black woman, you're still a Black woman. So you're watching people who look like you be traumatized by people who either look like you or don't. And it's like the Matrix. You have to take the red or the blue pill, right? So I decided I would take the pill that makes me want to fight against those systems and structures. And because in order to stay inside of them and just work and not pay attention to how people are being harmful, you have to really just ignore it. Your body is taking on the trauma of all the ways that people are being impacted. So using the experience from practicing medicine in New Orleans, being inside of public health, running the health department, running a maternal child health division, working inside of with nonprofits, working with HMOs, all of that info. I have a lot of information about a lot of different ways that healthcare is provided and a lot of different ways that systems are created that are harmful. So what we try to do is really translate what people want and need and fix the systems and structures so they're no longer harmful. For example, these conversations around doulas. I'll give you a great example. It's a concrete example of the work we do. When I first came in, because the world I live in is all about certifications. So we're like, oh, we need to get doulas paid by insurance. Okay, well, they just need to be certified. So in the beginning, without listening to the people, spent so much time just trying to figure out how do we get doulas certified. Well, when you listen to doulas, that's not what they want. That, in fact, that creates more room and more space for people being harmed, just like we are in healthcare. When you're trying to build Medicaid, it's already underfunded. You're getting certified. People, I mean, I know Black physicians who go to jail around Medicare and Medicaid. Adding another structure and system that could harm and police doulas through certification is not the answer. But I would not have thought of that without actually listening to and following the lead of the people who are actually on the ground doing the work. So what fostered us to do this work, and what fostered me to start my organization, is this understanding that I had a lot of information, but I also knew a lot of people, smart people like Tony and like you, Ms. Rolanda, Javon, and Chrisanne, who really are doing the work and who need who need to be honored and to be brought into spaces where they can we can shape the way that we are providing care in the United States. So I hope that answered it.
Oh, it did. Right on. Tony, you talked about it there in Mississippi. What is Mississippi like in terms of midwifery care and just healthcare, period? You know.
Well, I mean, you know, the statistics are there for Mississippi. You know, we are at the bottom most of the time. Sometimes Alabama or Louisiana helps us get one up, but for the most part, we're definitely in those bottom 5 all the time. I think one of the biggest issues here is access to prenatal care, and it's getting worse. Because our state decided not to expand, are having an issue now where our hospitals are not getting those subsidies that they should have been getting, and they're closing. So an already bad system is becoming worse because we are having labor and delivery suites closed. Rolanda, you're familiar with the Delta. We have one closed over there. So these women who already had a long ride have an even longer ride somewhere to get to the hospital. And so that when you look at people who are already oppressed and already don't have any money, they don't have cars, there's no public trans here, they're not going to be very quick to go to the doctor because they're having contractions when they're 24 weeks, because I mean, it's big, you know, to go ask somebody to watch all the kids while you go to the doctor yet again because you're having contractions. So then they just don't go until it gets too late, and then we have yet another baby in the NICU, you know. And then that baby doesn't get visited because they're 3 or 4 hours away from their parents, and it's not feasible or accessible for them to do so. You know, so I mean, it's all the same. I mean, like, our babies are dying. I hate to even dwell on the bad things. I like to look at the good. So here in Mississippi, what I'm seeing over the last, I've been in this work a long time. All y'all know that. But what I'm seeing as a change is that there are more Black birth workers. For a long time, I was like the Black doula, you know, and so it warms my heart to see so many more Black birth workers. I have a mentee who's off in Oregon right now learning to be a midwife. She's going to come back as a CPM. You know, I mean, like, I'm not even a CPM. So it's like, we need that. We need more of us to be at the table in order for change to happen. And so if our babies are ever going to be better, if our mamas are ever going to be better and have the things that we need, we are going to have that. And so that's one thing that I see that's good. The other thing that I see that's good is that I see providers that are starting to look like us. In this work, for a long time, we had Hispanic women who were undocumented going to hospitals and doctors' offices where no one spoke Spanish. I mean, that ain't right, in America. And so, and then you still have that mindset of, well, if you're in America, you need to speak English. Well, that's not our reality. And so now we're starting to see more of that. We're starting to see more translation services in the health departments and other places that we need. So that's good. We're starting to see places like people like me being at the table, and people are starting to see that the things that we've been saying forever are like, they make sense now. Seeing peanut balls in the hospital, I'm like, oh, y'all got a peanut ball. Let me show you how to use that. So I mean, like, all that stuff is beautiful. So we're starting to see that. We are starting to see better birth outcomes. I mean, like I tell people all the time, I'm gonna do the same work. I'm gonna educate my mamas. I'm gonna educate my daddies. I'm gonna educate the grandmama, the auntie, everybody. Everybody's gonna know about birth. They're gonna know about baby care, and they're gonna know about breastfeeding. And I expect them to go tell the community and to support the mom and the baby around all of that when they come. And so we're now seeing, I heard this one mama come to me and say, well, Tony, I helped her breastfeed. I got that baby on the breast and all this other stuff, but I think something else going on. So now she needs you. Where it used to be, they would call me to begin with. But having that frontline working in community is like, that's A plus, because that's saving me from being able to do one more thing. And those people in community are able to say, oh, that hurt. That's not right. Let's figure this out. And so those are the good things that I see. We have the Mississippi Public Health Institute in Jackson has a doula program. Like, I mean, that's huge for Mississippi. And so, of course, now the doulas ain't in the hospital because, can't nobody go. But they are on the ground supporting women who wouldn't be able to afford a doula otherwise, and they got funding for that. That's big key. I see we have a diaper bank over in the Delta. Shalisa is doing big work, making sure that people have diapers on their babies, and they got tampons for their vaginas when they on their period. You know what I'm saying? So all that stuff, that's good stuff. We got good stuff going on here. So I want to be, grateful of the good and not necessarily always look at the bad. Because I think we do a lot of that. We already know we bad, but we bad in a good way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah. One of our sister doulas just started the Mississippi Black Doula Collective. I mean, like, my heart is like, that's something I ain't had to start. I'm like, that's beautiful. So all of that, I mean, it just makes my heart feel good as a more seasoned birth worker to see that new group of people just coming along and really taking up that mantle and being like, hey, look, this is stuff we got to do in our communities. And then moving forward and just pushing that envelope just a little more so we can have healthier babies and healthier mamas, when they birth.
So for people who are not familiar with some of the terminology, what is the CPM?
Certified professional midwife. That is, so that's one of my I'm gonna try not to get on my, what's that word, podium about that. But CPM is the some people would call that the gold standard of midwifery. Personally, me, I think traditional midwifery is the gold standard of midwifery because it's what our mamas did. It's what our grandmothers did, practicing with them roots and herbs. That's what they did. And so I feel like that's gold standard over anything else. But some people might think CPM, certified professional midwife, those people that like them certifications, Dr. Joya, they might like that and call that the gold standard of what a direct entry midwife is. And what we're finding around our country, in places where CPMs are becoming the gold standard, is Black women are being pushed out. And so we're no longer part of those establishments because it costs a lot of money to go to a mixed school. That's not something we all can afford or even access. And in Mississippi, we don't have a mixed school. So a mixed school, you going online, everybody can learn online. That's not everybody's way. And so accessibility is a big thing with CPMs. But, I mean, it's like, when in Rome, you must do as the Romans, but you also can have your herbs. It's like our grandmother midwives, they'd always had that secret part in their bag. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so, like, you can have that name, that terminology, but you still can have that secret spot in your bag where you got the shepherd's purse when that pit just ain't doing the deal, So.
Okay, so that brings me to something else. So you mentioned, you talked about the Latino community, and I think one of the strengths that they have that we do not have is that they have things they can identify. So you immediately talked about them having their language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Black people, we really don't have a set language. Or there are things that they can do that's directly linked to their culture that immediately they can do and that they do for each other. We really stumble in that part.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So as things get better for them, it seems like some stuff is getting worse for us, or that we even get pushed out. Now, how is it that our birth outcomes are still looking like this, and other people have been here short of time and have moved further along, and we've helped them move further along, but we're not moving further along? What is that about?
It's just been the global devaluation of Black people. Like, I feel like birth won't improve until, like, us as a whole, like, birth is part of our experience, you know, here in the United States. And, you know, before I spoke up on that category of people of color and how, you know, we rush to be included in anything that makes us feel together, because Black people have advocated for everybody on the planet. Being the mother of the planet, they have advocated for everybody on the planet. But when we get in those groups, we tend to be the minority in the group of people of color, and we still get lost. For example, there was a debate going on in Marin, and am I echoing? Because I hear echo. That just happened. I don't know why. Okay, so you know, there was a report got released in Marin, which is one of the richest counties in California, and it was called Race Counts. And they brought in an Asian group to kind of analyze that data and present it to the community. And one of the Korean gentlemen was talking about, you know, how much progress that we've made, how much progress people of color are making in California. And then there was another Latino guy, and he was like, you know, he was talking to his son, and you have to vote in your interest. Like, if we have to get power, we have to vote. And I pointed out to him, in Marin County, Black people are 3% of the population. So no matter how angry we get, no matter how we organize, we can't vote in our interest. We have to count on other people. And then you put us in this category of people of color, and that's how they're thinking. And if they're 23% and I'm 3%, well, they're voting in their interest. And there's something wrong with the entire group, because we're in this group of people of color and supposedly supported by the concept of being a person of color, yet we still stay in the same situation while they continue to get more powerful. So if you go to San Francisco, Asians run that. Latinos aren't far behind them. Not to say there aren't pockets of poverty, but no group of people is doing as bad as the Black and the Native American person. So that whole, I just feel like birth will improve when the condition of Black people improves, when the access to education improves, when the economy for Black people improves, then birth will improve. And there has to be some sort of, we have to start self-governing. And when we self-govern, then birth centers, midwives, humanistic birthing through OBs, it all becomes part of the way we do things. And that's what you're saying, that they have a way they do things. But we have to have a way we do things, and we stay so divided, we can't even get together to agree on that way we're going to do things. What message are we going to have around birth? Like, we argue everything with each other. We can't, and we need to start, recognizing the diversity in our own community. When we say diverse, it don't mean we have to have a Chinese, a Black. Right? It means that we need to get the diversity in our own communities together to agree on platforms so that we can have a unified message to even talk about birth. But the way it is now, we'll have a OBGYN like Dr. Joya, or I know another one, Dr. Pierce, that we all work with, that are supporting the system, that are speaking up about the injustices. And then there will be another Black OB right next to y'all and just dispute that whole process, even though we know that Black women are dying, even though we know that Black babies are dying. So I don't know. I feel like things will improve when our situation and condition improves as a whole. And we have to be about the work of changing, improving that as a whole.
Javon, I agree with you that there needs to be more unity within the birth world, but I have to be optimistic, and I think things are going to get better because things have gotten so bad. I'm thinking particularly of the recent deaths of Kira Johnson and Shamani Gibson, that was last year. And those were horrible situations right after birth for Kira, and then a few weeks after birth for Shamani, where we weren't being listened to, we weren't being respected. And beautiful young Black sisters just died. And it was just like devastating for all of us. But I have to think that it's going to get better, because things like that have just been so horrific that I'm seeing a difference. Like in Philadelphia, there's a growing number of birth workers, lots of doulas. We had the Maternity Care Coalition that has a community doula training program that I volunteered for in the past. And then there's a program called the Petaway Foundation. About 20 years ago, this sister went to the health organizations, or I'm blanking the word right now, and basically said, if I hire and train doulas, will their services be reimbursed? So they're doing phenomenal work in Philadelphia. And I have to say, in the midst of difficulties, because when I started doing this work a long time ago, Rolanda knows, I've been doing this work since '92. I did one of the first Healthy Start programs in the country. We're down to 5 maternity hospitals at this point. And back in the heyday, there were like 15 or 16. So we're down to 5. So just like what's happening with the sisters in Mississippi, there's this gap, there's this lack of services, problems with access, but I still got to see that we're making progress. And I think that we are. And I'm gonna talk to you later, because I'm at a health center, and we were going to open a birthing center, and we had to stop because we had some difficulties with the site. But I'm definitely going to be back in touch with you.
So for somebody else, we're jumping in. What I was going to say though, Chris-Ann, the 2 women you mentioned, I don't even know who they were, and I think that has something to do with awareness. And so I'm optimistic, but I'm a realist.
Yes.
I'm so optimistic, but I'm a realist, because realist fits you in real time. Optimism is future. And so, I look at that, the fact that we have Black women dying in childbirth, and that's not on the Black agenda, that's a problem.
It's a problem for me too.
That's a whole problem. Like the brother who just was murdered, it was horrible. But that moved to the top of the agenda immediately when we have Black women dying, and it's hush on us. That speaks volumes to who we are as a people.
Yeah. Yeah,
that we're not just Dr. Joya. Like,
true. No, I just so for me, the conversation around color and the range of ethnicities is such a California. Let me tell you, when I'm in California, and I always try to take it, y'all got a whole in California. Let me just tell you. But what it's instructive for the rest of the country, because Tony and I'm from the Deep South. There's only white people and everybody else. So when it starts parsing out like Asians want to take over, or Latinos want to take over, like show up Asian, Latina, whatever, at anything in the South, you still not white, right? So there's no like room for running anything in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi for Asian, like that's not happening like that. So it's interesting to watch the dynamic of how this hierarchy plays out across the country, and looking at if we don't grab this narrative that the thing that we're fighting against is white supremacy, all of us.
Yeah.
Okay? So when other groups are trying to hierarchy, get ahead of others to be closer to whiteness, that's what's been killing us this whole time. Then Rolanda, what you just said, it was also patriarchy. So in the Black community, we got a bunch of patriarchy. So we will run for some stuff that has to do with Black men, but there's something impacting Black women, it gets crickets, silence, all the time. That's just too true. So one truth is white supremacy is real, it's harming all of us, and we've been losing, trying to fight of who can get the furthest away from Blackness. Like, right? Like the closer I can be to be white, because you're never gonna be white. Turns out Latin folks, Asian American folks never will be white, right? So that's just not gonna happen. So being mean to Black people doesn't get you any more quicker into heaven and get you wealthier. And anyway, so when we think about birthing and what we're building, it has to be anti-white supremacy, anti-patriarchy, like undoing all those things and trying to get our own Black people to agree that patriarchy is bad and that we have to fight together to undo.
That's the hardest part.
That's a whole
other program.
I agree with you. I agree. Like that's to simplify it down. Like we're fighting against white supremacy. I feel like it's steps in that fight. And I feel like when we start looking at the money, you know,
And that's what California gets you. So you can see what happens. Like
When
we
we
have
start looking at the money.
so that's all I'm saying. So it's instructive for me watching y'all because I'm like, okay, if we don't really point this out, it's going to be this battle the rest of the country over money.
And who gets it, percentage, and that these other groups of people of color have not an intact culture because we've all been affected, like you said, by white supremacy, but they have a little bit more unity that brings a little bit more power. And my concern is how they use that power when they get it, because we, with the very little power we have, are always using it to make sure that everybody is free. But when it's time for them to return that is an effect. And I don't think we deal with white supremacy without dealing with other communities who use the benefit of our ancestors, but then they don't want to be with us when it's time to be with us, unless it's something that's, beneficial to them. And once the benefit starts to come, there's separation. And so here in Louisiana, just to talk about the COVID epidemic or pandemic rather, our clinic in Louisiana, in Southwest Louisiana, in Calcasieu Parish, our clinic that they did not want to support or partner with. I mean, we fought to be at the table to be a drive-through testing site. Who's going to take care of this part of the community? We're in North Lake Charles, the Black community. Our people not going to make it to outside the city limits to go through a drive-through. We had to go through all of these steps to be at the table. Turns out we diagnosed the first COVID case in Southwest Louisiana, or in Calcasieu Parish. I'm not sure if it was Southwest Louisiana. When we sent this sister who had 5 babies to the hospital, they told her she didn't have COVID.
Right.
Who told you that? Who told you that? This woman was having shortness of breath. I mean, this was back at the time when the testing results were taking 7 to 10 days. And so she already had to wait 9 days to get her result. By the time we got her that result, she was suffering, coughing, shortness of breath, and our director of nursing, called down to the hospital to get her admitted. When she got there, that person had left. So she was at the mercy of the receiving nurse. They did not believe her. They tried to put her out the hospital. We ended up working it out, but I'm saying, when you sit here, we have this problem with Black people, in this case, Black women, and, Serena and others have said that, just not being heard. And I feel like a lot of that gets very unique to Black people, because white people, even though they might not want to give equity or equality to other groups, they have a little bit respect for their cultures because they don't understand them and they can't penetrate them. But we belong to white people. They think they know everything about us. So when we deter from, the program that they put us on, it's like, wait a minute, what you doing? Like, who told you this? Who can't you be? So I think I'm real sensitive to that conversation because I'm moving $19 million around and I'm trying to make sure that we get healthy. And I come from doing that before and having to fight surprising people at the table for the resource to make Black people well. And that's why I just go back to, it really is an agenda. Chris-Ann, I know you be working. I've been to your house several times. And I think that is, with everything you said is right, but that's Black people working. Like, I didn't become, the reason why our center had a birth center, the reason why we were one of the first birth centers for FQHCs, the reason why midwifery is a priority now in Southwest Louisiana is because I'm a CEO. Right. If I wasn't, nobody would care. Right. Like if even in California, which is progressive, and we talked a lot about Black women and their outcomes, if I wasn't the CEO, I couldn't move the chief health officer to support it. I couldn't get the board to support it. No doctor in our organization wanted a birth center. They had to have a birth center, and then they came along with it. I work with OBs now. I have 4 OBs I'm working with, and we don't have great outcomes. It is a struggle. I've been teaching for a year now to prepare them to the idea that we're going to have a birth center, but that's because of who I am, a birth worker. And so what you're saying, we have to bring more people like us all into this world and lead so that people have no option. This is what we're doing, and this is your part in it. And I think that's what helps us to grow. And that's what I'm hearing, is like we have people in leadership that are saying we're going this direction. And I could talk on and on and shut up. But
I appreciate what you're saying, my sister. I hear you and I appreciate, and I'm going to be in touch with you because I need some guidance from you.
Okay.
What are we going to do in Philly?
The organizing principle around all those other groups was white supremacy. I mean, there's nothing that makes a Chinese person and someone from the Pacific Islands the same. That's organizing around white supremacy. So all I'm saying is that, so until we undo that part, we're going to keep having the same fights, right? Like
I agree with that. That's why I said that's when we simplify it down. I'm with you all the way. That like sums up the word.
Right.
There's like details.
So with that being said, and I don't know if you all can answer this, but what do you do when you have white people who are coming along to help, but really they're still dealing with their privilege? Like, how do you do that? I've seen you do some of this, Javon. I mean, I don't know how you thought it through, but how do you, because that's another thing, you could be working inside of a system to help people, but you still have people thinking that the people that you helping don't know what's best for them, like the fluoride in toothpaste. That's why I learned that from you, Javon. What do you do? How do you deal with that? Because it's like y'all fighting on a lot of fronts, not just the obvious, but sometimes when you're inside the machine, you're fighting inside the machine. If you would.
Look, I guess we're all glad because it's our lives all day, every doggone day. At least it's my life all day, every doggone day. Like, we cannot do this work without pushing white people. It's impossible. Like, I don't know, unless we move to another place, we need some white people to move, to push, to do better, to be better, to come along. I don't know. We need a whole bunch of white folks to get it together. So I spend probably way more time than I would like working on that end of the equation, because I understand that that's my role inside of these spaces, working with ACOG, working with Kaiser, working with the state health departments. Like, all these are big white-led organizations. FQHCs, my God, big white-led organizations who have a long way to go to be actively anti-racist. To undo white supremacy in any of these institutions requires a lot of work. So I'm even triggered by the question. So somebody else.
Be an instigator. I have to be an instigator. I have to say things that make people uncomfortable. I have to speak up. And that's what I do within my FQHC. I mean, we have to be consistent and not back down and say what needs to be said. And it's not always easy, but we do it. I do it. And it's not always easy. And sometimes I feel like I'm by myself, but I do it.
So for me, I try to do a lot of teaching because I'm the leader of the FQHC, and a lot of times I'm working with white people and trying to gain their participation in my mission, which is to help Black people be well. And so what I know what you're talking about, Ro, is I try to explain to them what white supremacy in medicine means, because it hurts. Like, most doctors went to school, no matter who they are and how they see the world, they went to school to help. And they think they're helping. Even a lot of them, I've worked with a lot of great doctors of all races who even joined an FQHC to be part of the solution, except they were taught by our open enemy. So it's like, I want to help, but every lesson I learn is really, the newest science on the planet that brings death. And then people say there's white supremacy in medicine. What does that mean? And so I try to really break that down to make it simple. And so when Rolanda participated in a leadership retreat with me, and I think that white supremacy in medicine can be demonstrated through options. What option do you have, and what kind of control and autonomy do you have about your own healthcare? And so I don't use fluoride. This was a 2-year struggle for me at the last FQHC. I don't use fluoride, and I'm not telling you not to use fluoride, but there's a full movement of people who believe that fluoride affects, our nervous system, or contributes to Alzheimer. And there's a whole movement. So I went to my dental and said, we take care of poor Black people, and some of them feel like this. The white supremacy comes in when you talk about the idea that I don't use fluoride. I believe it'll kill me. I should have that right. to say I don't use fluoride, but I also have money. And I can go to Whole Foods and I can buy whatever toothpaste I want to buy, and I don't have to listen to nobody give me a lesson about fluoride. You should not have to have that when you're poor or Black. When you come in and you say, I don't do a thing, the best doctor knows how to say, I learned that you should do this, and here's why. But just like in the midwifery, all midwifery is about options. Like, oh, you don't want to do your glucose tolerance test? Let me tell you why some people do it. Let me tell you why others don't. You tell me what you want to do. Don't tell me I'm ignorant and all my teeth is going to fall out. So my whole thing was in dental, I wanted a person to come in and say, I don't use fluoride, and us to have a whole system, outside of the regular system to take care of those people. And there's a significant population in the Bay Area that doesn't use fluoride. And we just telling them your teeth gonna fall out, all kind of horrible stuff. So I wanted us to have Tom's samples. You could have a regular sample or you could have that. It took me 2 years. I had to threaten some people's jobs, but that's the way we talked about it. We started talking about options. And then when I started to talk about that, they got it because they can go to Whole Foods. But why shouldn't the poorest person in our community have the option to have the toothpaste that they think won't kill them? And so we went through the entire clinic and we looked at all of the areas in our clinic where you really were talked down on because you didn't want to do what the doctor said. Then we talked about health before white people, because Native Americans didn't have diabetes in their community. So many things that hurt us was introduced from that school of knowledge, that is coming into medicine. So you can't look at a woman and dispute what her grandmother told her. So I taught my providers, unless it's dangerous, don't dispute it. If a woman, it's happened to me so many times, I'm telling the woman comes in to complain about heartburn, and she tells me, well, my grandmother told me, I was talking to my grandma, this when I was in El Paso, and she told me to eat celery. And my thing is, celery ain't gonna kill you. Why do I care? You know what? Grandmas know everything. First of all, get that out the way. Grandmas know. So if your grandma told you to take celery, take it. And you know what? If it doesn't work, then come back and see me and we'll talk again. But I think it'll work because grandmas know everything. Like, if that hurts you to make a person feel pride about something that came from their culture, which probably does work because the Black folks brought these herbs over here and used to know how to use them until that was stripped. And so I think that is how we have to start teaching white folks who mean to do well about what it means to how does it feel when I walk into practice. One of the complaints they had when we opened the birth center, this is a true story, I can't believe it, but it was a Black birth center. We started it for Black women. And so all the doulas, most of the doulas in Marin were white. And so the doula network came through and they said, well, we have some concerns. All of the artwork here is Black women. I mean, this feels like, are we supposed to be there? And I said, I'm great, because my whole life I've been seeing pictures of white people at white practices that I have to go to. And if I feel like I'm not welcome, then I have to leave that place and go to another white practice with white people on the wall. So it's offensive to me that you think because Black people are hanging on the wall that somehow you're not welcome here. And we just have to start because it's about the feeling that people feel.
But it comes up in this COVID moment, right? Because there are two examples. Like there are Black birthing people and white birthing people who are opting to have home births right now in higher numbers. But then if they come to the hospital with a complication, how they are treated when they come is drastically different. So that's where you see this idea around choices and who has choice. So if a white woman chooses under COVID to have a home birth and then has a complication and comes to the hospital, there's empathy for that choice. There's a belief that look what she had to do to survive in this moment. She was worried and she stayed home and did the best for herself. If a Black woman does the same exact things, they call the police, they call Child Protective Services. They say, what was she doing trying to have a home birth in the first place? So it's the choice around believing some group has more value than another. Certain groups are supposed to police, and it shows up in policing. It shows up everywhere, right? So just as in our healthcare space, it shows up around who has the options to have a home birth or not, who's believed valued when we listen to their pain complaint. Like all that shows up in all those spaces.
So what do you all do when that happens, when the person looks just like you? Like I've seen this happen too. When you'll be doing your great work and then they'll get somebody who blacker than you to dispute your stuff. How do y'all handle that? I'm dead serious. I mean, it's like, how do y'all do that? Because you'll be looking at the person like, I just laid this whole thing out.
I know.
And you come and like, what do you do with that in that moment?
I'm a Black conservative, so you know I live my life like that. My whole life is growing up in San Francisco and not being a liberal. I mean, because I'm a conservative. I'm not a bully though. That's the thing is I don't care. At some point, I don't care what you do. Just don't care about what I do.
Right.
So like I've been debating, you know, Rolanda, come on.
But what do you do? Look like you, because you know this, because we, you know, we're supposed to be educated, and we know, like, how do you all handle when sometimes the person you're doing battle with is someone who looks like you? Because what people do is that they'll be like, every time, I don't know, Farrakhan say something, then they go get like the Black person that's, you know, like to dispute his stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of, you know, what do y'all do with that? Or how do you handle it?
I feel like I've been talking too much. So I'll just say briefly that for me, I recognize that white supremacy is also inside of us as Black people. We emulate so many of the same behaviors. So many folks, we kill our young, we fight each other, we devalue each other, we learned how to talk bad about our own selves. We try to sue each other and we ain't got no money, so I don't know what the lawsuit gonna get you. Like, it's just all these weird things that we've absorbed around whiteness that we don't even recognize when we're doing it. So I mostly just ignore it. If they're in a position that they actually have some type of power, which honestly rarely happens. If a Black person comes in and the white folks are trying to put them in a space, they're a prop for whatever else was happening before. So I tend to, and then I try to talk to them separately, you know, like, sis, have you read any of these books? Do you understand that what we say really, really matters? So when you problematize Black people as an OBGYN, when you blame Black folks for their deliveries, when you say, if only she would just show up and I'm doing my best, that is deeply harmful. And that your mom, you will come back in the same hospital and be treated poorly because of the color of your skin. And you got to put your white coat on just so you don't get treated crazy. That's a problem.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Joya. Anybody else want to add on to that?
Well, when it happens to me, and I can say it doesn't happen that often, but when it happens, I just remind myself who I am. I'm just going to I take a good look in the mirror, and then I connect with sisters around the country, like you and Javon, who just like have mentored me, because, you know, I'm old enough to be your mama, but have mentored me, almost have mentored me and loved me and supported me, because it gets lonely out there sometimes. But I'm gonna just tell you, I go back to basics. I remember the struggles of my ancestors, as corny as that may sound to some people. I do. I look in the mirror and I look at myself, and then I know what my true goal and mission is to help. I was born to serve. So, you know, when people, and a lot of times it's people who are higher up, they have a lot more credentials, a lot more initials after their names than I do, but that doesn't bother me anymore. I just do what I have to do. I just stay focused on what I know that I was called to do. And I survive by the grace of God and with people like you. That's what I'm going to say.
I know.
But also there's room to disagree. Like, I also think that sometimes that's just a better discussion. Like, people don't have to agree with everything I say. I see a way to do it, and there's value in other ways to do it. And we're all needed at the table sometimes, you know, we need protesters, but then we need people at the policy table. Like, it could be multifaceted. And I think that that is a challenge for the Black community. I'm quoting because is there like the connotation that we all have to be alike? Well, we don't all have to be alike. There are truths and valid points to many people's opinions, and sometimes it's just the lens. I see the world different. Well, okay, well, you probably won't be in my clan, but there's a clan that you can be, and we don't have, it's like Wakanda, right? They had that clan that wasn't really part of the other clans, but they came through and rescued it for everybody. And I think that it's important that we also look at Black folks, and, you know, I'm going to this. I was just talking to Ro before this. They haven't finally little rally in not little, let me not say a rally in Lake Charles to just honor that the brother had been murdered. Like nothing happened in Lake Charles. And I appreciate that something was set up. It ain't the way that I protest. It seems like it's gonna be a love fest, right? And so white folks immediately on the thread started attacking the protest. We hope they don't think they coming to tear up our city. We bringing guns, just all kind of crazy stuff. And so somebody tagged me, and I struggle with whether I gotta say something because I ain't gonna be able to sleep. But my thing was that, I'm gonna come to this event because I want to support Black voices in all perceptions of Black liberation. Like I wouldn't do it like that, but I support that they did it like that, and they're gonna say I want their event to be successful, And so just because I don't see the world how they might see it, don't mean that we're not in it together. Don't mean that we got to get out of it together. And sometimes it's just that space and aspect that will bring us together in unity. One of the best women I ever worked. I said I'm conservative. I didn't say I was Republican, right? But I worked with a very brilliant Black Republican woman. And we disagree all the time. The way my leadership team works is we all powerful Black. I have a majority Black woman leadership team, and everybody's very powerful. And we disagree and we argue and laugh at the table. And we always in an argument. I have to leave the table sometimes saying she won that was right. She have a brilliant idea. And we have to do a little bit more of that, because I think when we don't do that, it turns into that weird culture we have now where when you say anything against what the group said, we calling her in or we going to do a bunch of crazy. Somebody sent me a thing. They was arguing with me and they was like, did somebody call her in? And I was on the thread and I was like, don't call my number because you won't call nobody else after you call this number. I get to think what I want to think, and I want good for the Black community, but I don't agree with everything that another person that wants good for Black people might agree with. And so I just want to put that in, that sometimes we just have to have a little bit more love and patience for other ideas, because we all trying to survive this weird experience called America. And we're having to Chris Ann, or Dr. Joya or Tony didn't necessarily happen to me, and they're going to frame their response based on what happened to them. So we got to understand it.
I know. What can we do, ladies, now that we're in this time where now we got all these riots going on? What can Black women do to be safe that are pregnant, that are parenting? What can they do now? And I remember, let me just say this. I remember going to a training with Javon in, was that Idaho?
Yes. It was a CPM training, Tony.
Yeah. That's the first time I threw blood on somebody. I was like, oh my God, I'm not even a good wife. But anyway, and they talked about what do you do? I think like in case of an emergency, but so now we're kind of like working our way to that particular place where it's, where it could be like that. What can people do?
To do what, Ro?
When you talk about safe, the first thing that comes to mind is not physical, it's emotional. When we look at epigenetics and the effects of cortisol on our babies, and I think that's what I tell every single woman who I talk to when she's in that, that whole this thing, the first thing I do is talk about how we can come down from that space and explain it to her what the effects of what life outside in America is for her baby, in utero, and explaining that I think is key number one. We can create space either by just sitting, like for me, I create space for women by sitting in my garden and meditating and praying and just sending out good vibes for those women. And I know that they feel that within where they are. I think also it's just letting people know that you're there for them. I understand that just kind of letting people know, hey, I understand this time is hard, because me, as a Black woman in America, the last thing I want to be right now is pregnant. That's me. I don't want to be pregnant right now to try to have to birth in this particular environment. And so I want to hold space for those women who are in that space, because I know in my mind I sit up there and think about that and how that's gotta feel. Every time you cut on Facebook, you scrolling and you triggered by all these things that are happening. And say, for instance, in general, like you're gonna bear a black son. And so, and all you're seeing on TV is like, oh, this is happening, this happening. And you scroll over here to Instagram, and there's these black women who have died. And then you scroll over here, and you're on March of Dimes, and your state has an F. And so, I think their environment is emotionally is so high because of that cortisol, that's one thing that I always try to make sure that I focus in on is like, how are you caring for your emotional health? You know, because even after they have their baby, if they're not emotionally sound, then you're looking at a situation where they got some postpartum depression. And if it's an environment where they don't have, because like where we are, there is no free mental health care. So like if you don't have no insurance, which after 6 weeks, you don't have no Medicaid no more, you just stuck like Chuck. You know what I'm saying? And so she is constantly having all that cortisol in her system, and she's bringing up our new people. You know what I'm saying? And so when I think about safety, the first thing I think about is an emotional health and ensuring that these people are feeling safe in their mind, you know, emotionally, and then trying to give them like tools on what they can do. When I know people are who have a history of depression or things like that, I'm like, baby girl, while you're on Medicaid, you need to go see the doctor so you can get some drugs, so you can figure out what you need after you've had your baby. You know, ensuring that they know that, ensuring they know what resources are out there that they may not be able to access today because all these offices are closed. But as soon as this stuff starts opening, you need to go down there to the Christ Pregnancy Center because they got Pampers, or you need to go over here, you know, to go do this because you need that, you know. So just making sure they know what's available in their village, so that that emotional turmoil that's going on in their minds can go down just a little further. Because you look at so many people, like this is where they are, the shoulders are high, and you're like, what's going on with you, baby girl? Just checking in. You know, I found also, because with us, we pretty much are closed because we're in a point of, I say our organization is closed, but Tony is open because we don't have any funding. I was already running on my energy on top of catching babies and all the other stuff. So I got to a point where I was like, okay, so COVID's going on, our office is locked. So we're not in a situation of being closed to people coming in, but if everybody got my cell number. So if somebody calls me, instead of doing a phone call with a sister or texting with a sister, I'm like, hey girlfriend, I pay $16 a month for Zoom. Let's jump on that. You know, because I want to see her and I want her to see me and know that I'm here with her and I'm helping hold space. And just taking a moment and checking in and being like, what can I do for you today? One thing we can do to ensure that you stay emotionally healthy for the children that are already in your home and then the child that's in your womb as well.
Anybody else in terms of?
I just love what you just said. We got to talk too, because I haven't, and I never say client, I have a new mommy that I'm working with. She's young, she's 24. And I told her, it's too long-winded to tell you how we met. Somebody introduced her to me thinking that she should come to a class that I teach. She didn't meet the demographics. I do sister circles around women's health that started out as breast cancer prevention. And I call them sister circles. I just borrowed what I do at home. My sister circle just celebrated its 25th year. So somebody brought it to me and they said, you need to meet Chris-Ann. And then when I talked to her, I said, no, she's not a good candidate for the sister circle. Then I found out she was pregnant. Then I found out she was seeing a nurse and a therapist and going through all kinds of shit. And I said, I want to be your doula. And I had just watched Mama Claudia's video the day before. And I kept saying, why am I meeting this sister? She's not the demographics, because the women that come to my class are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I got two mamas in their 80s that come to my class. This baby is 24. So I said, I want to be your doula. And she said, well, what's that? And then I told her. And she said, well, what do you want to do? I said, it's my job to make you happy. And she looked at me like, oh, it's crazy. I said, I'm going to make you happy while you're pregnant, so you can have a safe pregnancy, a healthy pregnancy, and this wonderful baby that's on the way. And then her mother jumped in, and her mother was like, what's a doula? And so my job is like, this is, it's Tony, right? Is to,
yeah, that's right,
give them a safe place to fall, because that's what we need. Black women need safe spaces to fall. And as Black women, we know that better than anybody. So when you said, what can you do? I wasn't sure what you meant, but I got it. To help Black women, to lift them up, to give them safe, soft places to fall, because we need it. We all need it. Sometimes I need it and I don't get it. But I wake up in the middle of the night thinking sometimes, what can I do to help these sisters, because they need our help. So that's just my answer. Really very similar to what Tony said. Hold space for them.
I also think at this time, because I love that. I think that part is so critical. But I think to achieve that, we have to pay attention and we have to be organizing around that. Like the work has to be done to make that landing space for these sisters. Like we found out when all of this craziness went on around COVID and food and like that, it was a very short time before people started not having money, not having food. The food system was compromised. Like we saw how fragile the system is and how fast it breaks down. And I think our conversations in the Black community have to start being around how to create that safety for ourselves when no one else can do it. Because you know, moving forward, and people believe different things, but we spent a lot of money as the government to keep things going, to make sure people had unemployment in states. And so they say, you know, there's gonna be a second wave. It's not a second wave of that. Something is always happening. Yeah. And I think we got a little taste of how fragile our Black economics is, even when the system, I mean, we hear all the time, you know, we live in poor communities and this and that, but we also know that we have people who make money. We move a lot of money in the Black community, but we saw how fragile it was. And so I think that prioritizing that idea that Tony and Chrisanne just spoke on is amazing, and understanding that to have that happen, we have to create some other things. Like we have to make sure we're okay, like community gardens. Like I think that's a big conversation right now. It was already happening, but we have, you know, we should double down on that. Finding Black farmers, finding people who have the things we need, like soap. We remember the toilet paper that was just yesterday. Nobody could get toilet paper. Like that's a real thing. And so I think we have to move past the idea that these things are going to happen because somebody is going to make sure that they happen. If you know, we should have known that before Trump. We did. I'm sure everybody on this call. But you know, some people didn't, and they had that meltdown around Trump. And so I'm gonna say that we should all be equalized now in the idea that we're not getting nothing. We're not getting nothing. Even this little unemployment, that's just a little few weeks of, you know, fake hope that we got. But we got to make sure that we can create that for us, particularly for pregnant women, those bringing in new life, without the help of somebody giving us, you know, you got to be my help. Basically, like we got to be each other's help. I just learned that you lived on the farm, Tony. I didn't know that before this call, but now I know that I might have to go to Mississippi, or I got to come see me right here. Like my neighbors need to know that they can come and get food, and I need to know what you do. Like we always talk about that, the good old days that I never experienced in my entire life, when you could go to your neighbor and get some sugar. But that may become a reality for us, because it was amazing to me to see how fast things were in collapse.
Yeah. Now you can't get no freezer. I got a goat that need to go in the freezer, and we don't have room for them. It's funny because I find the freezer. Put this goat in.
You know, and Tony.
Denise, I'm sorry, Sister Denise has joined us. So,
Dr. Joy. Can you hear me? Hey, I'm just getting in. Can you hear me?
Yes. So good to see you.
So good to see you, Dr. Joy and Tony.
I just want to
part of that love fest right there.
It is. No, but I grew up in a rural Louisiana too. So whenever people are talking about farms and farming and all that, it reminds me of home. We had everything. I used to fuss at my grandmother that why can't we buy jelly like everybody else? Why you got to make the jelly? Why we can't buy blankets like everybody else? Why you got to make the blankets? Now people wish they could have. Like I've always lived in neighborhoods where I could get sugar from somebody. So that for me is my like growing up base reality, that we had a community where we had everything inside of our community. We made everything inside of our community. That happens all across the rural South. all the time, quite frequently. What we haven't been able to do is export that idea to other parts of the country, right? Like that this is the norm, that we did have community, we ate each other. You know, we had chicken farm, we had, we would kill a cow and the community would come and we would kill a pig and I'd make the sausage. Like this was normal life. This was not an exercise at an event or we didn't need a lot to do it. It was just our everyday, how we lived.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Is that wrong to say that I'm looking forward? I'm looking forward to feeling that type of unity in our community, though. I think that we have to embrace this hardship that has been here as an opportunity to have that, because we just haven't so far away from. Well, you know, I remember I lived in subsidized housing. So up until the time I was 7, there wasn't that with Dr. Joya is talking about, which I'm trying to get to, but there was, you know, the candy house.
Mm-hmm.
And like our neighbor might be a barber, or our neighbor might do hair, or you knew you could get a dinner from somewhere. And then, you know, I just think everything is a strategy as white folks started to take that away from us through licensing. Like you can't sell food out your house.
And them licenses.
But we always knew how to do that. And so I feel like in this time of hardship, my hope is that we will get the courage to do that again. Because, you know, when you think about it, how you gonna let somebody tell you a barber and you can't cut hair at your house, you know? So I live amongst farms now, and I've never lived on a farm. This has just been 2 months for me, but I have 14 chickens growing right next to me while we're talking. And I'm really excited because it's been something I want to do, and I believe in Black liberation. I believe this is some stuff we got to do to have freedom. And I'm enjoying it, and I'd like to experience that and do my part. But I believe that's a part that we have to have in order to do the part that Tony was talking about. Because how else are we going to be at peace when we're thinking about food, when we think about toilet paper, when we're thinking about water? Like, you know, how else do we achieve that?
How much do you think government has to do, or this whole thing around our maternal child health for Black people, Black women, the whole thing? What does that have to do with this next presidential candidate? You know, like all of this, Joe Biden, Trump, like how is this really going to impact us for real? I love silence. You know, silence to Black people, that has another language to it. That's a whole other language.
Especially Black women. When Black women y'all,
that is so true. Like quiet, you like,
I don't want nobody to be mad, but I'm not going to be able to vote for Joe Biden unless Stacey Abrams is running mate. I'm just not, and I don't want to be pressured like, oh my God, no vote is a vote for Trump. Like I believe the difference between, in many cases, white liberals and white liberals and white conservatives is just the way they say no. Really pretty what Joe Biden said. Like, I wish I could do that. I'm not going to be able to hear. And then, you know, conservatives might be just like, no. You know, I don't see how I'm a benefit from him. Like, I'm gonna need to see a strong Black woman or Black candidate, but I'm starting with Black woman candidate under him. And that person, like, I feel like I need to know that our agenda is going to be heard. I just can't vote for Joe Biden. I'm over that, and I'm over the whole pressure about not doing it. I don't really care.
And you know you ain't Black if you don't vote for him, though.
Like, they like, what? You doing something different than I taught you to do?
No, but
Don't vote for Trump. That's all. Please don't vote for Trump. I don't know what the presidential campaign is going to be. I know we need to start locally, and I just came from something that we need to start locally.
Yes.
The impact at the president, I don't know how it really impacts us locally. We really have to start making our local elected officials doing something during the pandemic. The pandemic has allowed us a space to be creative It's allowed us a space to, I think I came in and y'all were probably talking about entrepreneurship or how Black families were beginning to go back to the roots of what they did. Like my hair looks however it's looking because I have to do it now myself. I can't go out to the beauty parlor. And I'm not going to be genocide to go out as if that's an essential thing. I need to go get my hair and nails done. No, not quite. But we put pressure on the governor to develop this COVID-19 maternal task force, of which PN was part of. But it was after I'm not sure if y'all know a lot about DSRIP, and I forget what it stands for, but it was how do you reduce cost.
Right.
And there were about 12 different projects. Money came from the feds to the states, to hospitals, to managed care plans, and community-based organizations had to fight to sit at the table. And while they were eating with China, we were just still eating with paper plates, and we didn't even get the paper forks and knives. But maternal child health was not on one of the projects at all. And when it was, about only 2 projects throughout the whole state focused on it because they didn't put enough quality and money towards it. And in that, they realized with this 5-year project that now all of a sudden they want to do a whole bunch of stuff with maternal child health. Well, you had the opportunity before. So now they want to do something with midwifery. They want to put all of maternal child health on the backs of the doulas, like the doulas, while important, but doulas are going to save the world. And we know that that's not true. And so we had to pressure, we're now pressuring the governor. So for me in New York State, I don't know, I'm not voting for Trump at all. And we don't have really no good candidates that's left right now for the presidential, but I need to make sure that our local elected officials are going to do something for the communities of Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, the Bronx, New York City, because they can impact that. You know, so the senators, 2 of the senator that was pepper sprayed, by the way, at Barclay, one of the ones that put money in and developed legislation, didn't quite get passed, but putting legislation in there, that's who we're going to, so that they can pressure the governor. So I think that we really need to look at what do we do locally, community by community, state by state, that will eventually have an impact, you know, in DC. But I need to know what's having an impact in New York at this point in time.
And on both of those points, I think it would be remiss for any Black person to fuss at another Black person to say they have to vote for Joe Biden. Like that's like not appropriate at this moment at all. That we have done that. Black women specifically have done that a million times. We have traded on our uteruses, on our wombs, on our children's backs to get somebody elected. And then those same wombs, those same children have been murdered and taken and all this other stuff. So I'm not here for blaming Black women and telling us what we got to do for anybody anymore. I would love for him to have Stacey Abrams or someone else as a running mate. And, you know, and I, as a person who sits inside of a lot of federal policymakers, I have to believe that he's important. So I'm going to vote because I need him to do better and I need to push him to do better. And one of the things he could do that would help, for example, both Louisiana and New York, is that the money that comes from the federal level to those places could actually go to the communities that need it. Like right now, the way that works is the money just goes to governors and then governors kind of send out money. So like Title V, Title 10, a lot of the things that y'all are getting money from HRSA, they give it to if you have a racist governor, or if you have a governor that doesn't care about your part of the town, it doesn't matter. You know, you're going to get bypassed. And we see this right now with the money that's coming from COVID. They're taking the money back from the city of New Orleans. The governor, and I like the governor, but the state legislature is saying that the state should control the money, not the municipalities. You know why? Because the mayors are Black people, right? So they want to control it at the state level. So anyway, I am hopeful that we can push him. What he could do is, instead of having an office of family planning, he could have an office of reproductive justice. Like we can do a lot of stuff differently as a government, as a federal government. I don't know that this will be the aspirational president that we wanted currently to do these big aspirational things, but we got to still keep asking. We got to push him to tell him we want it. I mean, I want an office of reproductive freedom, at least. Can we do that? You know, those are some things we could do that he could do. So
I agree with that.
The two-party system doesn't work for me. It's antiquated. It doesn't work. Lesser of two evils. At my age, I've been hearing that all my life. So that just it's kind of upsetting. I think we need to be grooming and nurturing new, young people coming up to be in elected offices. And I agree with the sister from New York. What's happening right here in Philadelphia is very important to me because I have no faith in these people. I have no faith in these people. I'm not enamored with any of them. We need to be more political savvy and a little more sophisticated and not so damn gullible, and that we believe that these people are coming to save us. We got to save ourselves.
That's right.
That part.
That's right.
I'm sorry. I'm too old for that.
Tony, anything?
Well, you know, Mississippi always goes red. So that's just how it is. But when thinking about political, I'm just kind of thinking about the mayor of Tupelo posted on their little Facebook page that we're going to have a peaceful protest today, and the police are going to be out there to protect everyone. So in my black brain, I'm like, I don't think that doesn't sound like protection to me, you know. So I'm like, you know, and thankfully, my husband said thankfully because I didn't find out about it till almost when it was over. Like it was gonna be 5 to 8, and I was in the garden, so I didn't see it until like 7. And I was like, I know, you know how you do the whole thing talking to the screen, and he was like, I'm glad you found out late. Because, you know, I would have showed up. I would have been up in there, you know. But I mean, the whole idea of when we talk about government, and they have this warped view of what we want and what we see as things. And in your post about this peaceful protest, and he tried. He's a blue governor. I mean, blue mayor. He tried because he was like, we're not going to have any counter protest and any of that, and the police are going to be there. And I was just thinking. Because here, in all seriousness, we had here in Tupelo. Well, I'm not in Tupelo, but in Tupelo, we had one of my classmates was a victim of police brutality. He died, of course, at the hands of an officer, and of course, nothing happened because we here in Mississippi, and in America in general, you know, and so to see something like that still in a climate where we just had somebody have an issue at the hands of an officer. I'm like, that don't spell safety to me. That spell to me that I need to you know, use my constitutional right to bear arms and make sure I got my peace on my side when I go out there for these here officers. That's what that says to me. And so we talk about, I have no faith in political, like anything, you know. I'm sort of like Chris saying, I'm like, we got to save ourselves. Like, ain't nobody at the table for us. We got to be there to be able to be like, hey, look, this is what's going on with our people. And then when the table fails, we still got to be here to catch them crumbs that are falling so that our mamas and babies are going to be okay. So our next rash of people who are growing up are going to be better off and not have as much trauma as all of us have. You know, and so like, yeah, government, I vote, but yeah, you know, like I say, Mississippi gonna go red. So, you know, no matter who I vote for, at the end of the day, that little electoral college, which should be beat down with like a silver truck, it's still gonna go red at the end of the day. So, you know, but I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna do my thing. I got a bunch of voters in the house. We all take a picture. I voted, but you know, I still am here in Mississippi. So, you know. Some things ain't gonna change, like, you know, real quick, fast, and hurry. But you better believe the next mama that's gonna come in contact with me is gonna birth empowered.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
That's what I can say. You know,
I like that, birth empowered. It's interesting that you said it because I think sometimes for some Black people, we'll say words like we assume that we know that you don't vote. You know what I mean? Or we try to use fear on Black people. And at this point, we didn't survive everything people have thrown at us. So it don't matter if you got Trump or Joe Biden or whoever, you still gonna have to do for self. And I think that fear tactics don't work. Like you can't threaten Black people and say, don't vote for Donald Trump. That's not my place to tell you that. Just like I don't tell you what to put in your pot. I think what we are afraid to do is to say to each other what we need to do to help each other right in this moment. That takes guts. to say to somebody, hey, you got that plot in your backyard, you should be planting some food.
Right.
That's when you should have some courage. That other stuff it don't matter who the president is. Black folks have always been struggling since I could remember, but I think we struggle and make more when we rely on each other and not put our hopes on people who never intended for you to be free of them. And that's really a hard concept to get with. So in saying that, over these last couple of days, and I just had to throw this in there, what has been y'all thoughts about some of because I think there's a difference between protesting and rioting, and I don't think the protesters are the rioters. That's just my personal opinion. What do you think?
No.
So I will, there's been a lot of discussion. We have the right to protest. We have the right to be angry. What hasn't happened that we need to do is to be angry, but then also become strategic, because and to also hold others accountable for what they show in the media, because we lose the point when we riot. It's not about the rioting, but it's understandable and shouldn't be surprising to us when you continue to be oppressed. We're in a quarantine state. We had Minnesota. We had, what was the sister's name that just this is just in this last 2 or 3 months. We already knew that the cop was going to get, he's on administrative leave with pay. It was no mistake. It wasn't an accident the way he was holding the brother down, and where he had his knee and his hands in his pocket. Later to find out he has a hat that says "Make White Great Again" or whatever. This is not new news for us. What is our behavior? We can't fight violence with violence when it comes to the cops. We really can't. That's not our best strategy. But we do need to strategize. What are we going to do without it? Yeah, I do. Whether we believe voting matters or not, it matters when it comes to the census, because resources comes or don't come into my community. People saying hi, and I'm getting confused. So yeah, I don't think necessarily the rioters, everybody didn't come for the same thing. I think though that we do need to be understanding that is going to happen, and people that are protesting and people that are commenting, well, they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that. We need to be understanding, because at some point when you continue to be oppressed and nobody continues to, and we don't feel like you're being heard, it is human nature that you're going to react. We just need to educate ourselves that we're burning down our own homes, we're burning down our own businesses and things like that. And so how do we really sort of learn the system so that we can be productive in making the change that we need to do?
Before the next person answers, I just want to give y'all this tidbit of information. Okay. I think sometimes that we kind of follow the narrative that's been written, but we think it's our own independent thought. Mm-hmm. So basically now it's coming out, because news travels fast, that it's really white supremacists and far left people who are behind the violent part of the march. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We confuse those with protesters.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I need to want to act like we making power moves. Mm-hmm. We know people can protest peacefully and go home, but then these other people have showed up, and their agenda could be to start like some kind of race war or something. Because some people are really crazy.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm gonna have to go. My internet's starting to act crazy a little bit, but I just wanted to say.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Yep, her internet. She said her internet started that crazy.
Oh, your mind.
And then she
oh yeah. Okay, maybe she'll jump back and leave it there.
I want to say that. Did she come back? Okay, that I support the protesters, and I support them. Some people say protesting doesn't matter, or we've been protesting for this long. To me, protesting, you came back.
I came back. Yeah, before my internet messed up again.
You want to go ahead and finish?
Yeah, just before my internet messes up again. Just that I realize that we're not the age of the protest. I'm saying I am not the age of the protesters. There are people who are actually doing real organizing. I got an email while we've been on this call from the Movement for Black Lives. So when we sit in our positions of older authority and talk about what the folks are doing, know that we're not part of that movement anymore, right? That we don't know what they're organizing. We're not part of their conversations. We don't know what they're doing. And so we need to take a little bit of humility around the thing is we're not part of that. So my role is I use my privilege and I do get access to rooms where there are policymakers and try to learn from what the folks who are organizing are doing to make more room for that. But I can't judge how they're organizing and what they're doing because I'm not a part of that movement. I'm not a part of what they're strategizing for. And that's not my position in the space.
Right on. Thank you, Dr. Joy. We can ready to wrap up anyway, but thank you so much for being on the call in case your internet messes up again. Go ahead, Javon.
You know, my daughter is a protester, and I sat and fought that case for over a year to get her from Mike Brown. My daughter went to jail. They charged her with 4 counts of felony assault on police officers, rioting, and all kind of other stuff. So last night she called me because she was headed out in Oakland. And I was like, please don't go to jail because I ain't in California, to get you out. But my thing is, some people will say protest doesn't matter or why are we still doing this? I think, again, it's multifaceted. Protesting for me is for young people. It's for them to ignite, to bring other people into the fold, like get the people involved, ignite the fire. I am not one. I don't care about all the looting and all of that. I don't loot. I don't want my children to loot, but I understand all of it. I feel like it is a false narrative to say we burning our community down. Typically, the businesses that get burned down are not ours. And it's not politically correct, but I don't really care if the Korean beauty salon, the other nail shop, Metro PCS, and that's not us. That's not our. These are predators that come in and make money off of us and go home. And I think that is part of the statement. Like I just really don't care. I wish that we would do that without looting, but I also wholeheartedly believe they said that the arrest of this police officer in Minnesota was the fastest arrest of the police that ever happened. It wasn't enough for us. We wanted them to go right then. We want all 4 of them to be arrested. However, they was burning Minneapolis down. And that's why they arrested that police officer, because they had to have a strategic solution. We don't want our city burned down. This is about money now. This is about resources, and we got to arrest somebody. So nobody can tell me that there wasn't value to the violence in them protests. White people respect violence. They don't respect peaceful protest. I don't even really understand what a peaceful protest is. What exactly? You can just get on Zoom like we doing and give your message. What is a peaceful protest? If you come for me, I'm coming for you. I make my children protest. When they protested for so much,
come through Oakland.
I was like, get it on the streets. How you gonna watch TV when people think about y'all? These young people finna inherit the world. So when people come to me, that's like when they say you voted for Obama because he was black. Yes, I did that. I have no other answer. Absolutely, that's what I did. Don't come to me talking about these people. Them children, they know what they want to burn down. Somebody had wrote that Target, when it first started to be attacked, when they decided they was going to burn it down, that they was denying milk to the protesters who had been tear gassed. That's all I'm saying. Casualties of war. Young people are out there doing stuff that we won't do. And sometimes I get really excited that they're not connected to us like that, because we will take all the fight out of them. We trying to protect our livelihood. We don't want white people to think we racist. It's so stupid. We be like, well, you're prejudiced. Yes, I'm prejudiced. Is a gazelle gonna prejudge a lion? Until I know y'all gonna start being safe, I'm prejudging everybody. I don't really know where we lost that part of our survival skill, but I support. I'm not saying nothing against some young people. If they want to tear down a few more communities, that's what they got to do that we won't do. That'll get the conversation started. That'll get these people arrested. I don't agree. Like what I tell my children, full disclosure, I'm always telling them, when you go out there, please don't steal people's stuff. We look so stupid running out with a TV. So I'm not saying that I'm just saying that when it happened, so we knew in San Francisco that, what you call those people that show up? anarchists show up. They've been doing that. We know what's happening there. It's not we got to stop focusing on them. And so I just want to say, I say all of that to say, I support these young people protesting. I'm not going to get in the way. I told my daughter, call me when she get there so I can know if I got to come get you. But I'm going to feel some kind of way about my daughter if all of this is going on and she's sitting on the couch and we've been talking about freedom this whole time, and now it's time to show and prove. If she could take it from there, I can take it from my part. I'm every day working to make sure Black people have access to care. I'm every day making sure that these people understand what our mission is and what we gonna do, and making sure we have Black programming. But that's only one part. Like the wisdom part, the policy part, that's one part. There's another part that these young people have to bring, and that's why they're young. Young people always change the world, not us. Young people always do it. And we got to stop criticizing them. We got to stop letting white people punk us. Do you agree with? Yes, I agree with it. I don't care. I don't even want to talk about it.
All right, Jay.
Right.
Look, and that's truth. I ain't mad at you. That's true. Because some of us are warriors and some of us are just, we all have our positions. That's what I keep believing in myself. You know, some people got to be that flamethrower. Some people are afraid of fire. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to ask them to go throw the flame. So I think sometimes we need to hear that, Javon. We really do. Anybody else before we get this wrap up?
I mean, do y'all agree though? Like this, the reason
I love it. I agree. You said everything that was all bad.
They would not have arrested that man. I don't care what people say. They would not have arrested that man in a man.
All your opening came out. You were like, you come for me, I'm coming. I was like, okay.
That's what I know. That's what I know. That's what I know. So in parting, family, what are y'all parting words that you want people to hold on to for the week as we wrap this up?
Well, I'm glad I met you, Dr. Joya. I'm sorry, but I
want to stay connected for sure.
Mm-hmm. And we got connected through Facebook, but I never got to see you. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate all you amazing ladies. Like, I really love when I come on Rose Show because I feel like we have all of this, power and energy and love in the room. And it makes me happy so that I can keep doing the work that I do. So I appreciate you, Ro, and all you sisters. And, I'm going to be talking to everybody again because I found out Tony had this farm. And I'm energized. I never, I can't remember your name, Miss West.
No,
yeah, I just want to benefit off all y'all wisdom and keep being connected. So when I need to know something, I have a circle. And my little comment for the week is, let's get it on.
Let's get it on.
Right.
Before everybody get their comments, I just gotta remind people that as you look at this screen, you have a Black woman that is a president and founder of a National Birthrights Equity Collaborative. This sister is a doctor.
Joya.
Yeah, Dr. Joya. Then you have Sister Chris Ann on here, who is a life coach and a community engagement specialist and the doula and the nana and the whole nine. Then you got Sister Denise West, that is the deputy executive director of the Brooklyn Perinatal Network. And then you got Sister Javon, who's the CEO of the Southwest Louisiana Center for Health Services. And then you got Sister Tony, who is an executive director of the Northeast Mississippi Birthing Project and also a traditional midwife at the Blooming Moon Midwifery. You cannot tell me Black people don't have power and don't have power that they work and that they will on their own. This is not something that was appointed to us. This is something that we had to create. So when I'm talking about Black people, I'm talking about the power in which we govern ourselves. All of y'all, what you're doing is self-governance. Because most of y'all doing this, and it's not like you funded by the government and you got appointed. You like, no, something is happening with birth and life and our health. Because if we don't have our health, we don't have much of anything else. So I want y'all to take a mental note. Don't tell me what people say, but we ain't got. And you looking at 5 sisters on this screen today who are out there working from all type of positions. Not just all of us are at the very bottom and nobody's up at the top. We have the full range up in here today. So you cannot deny that. You really cannot. And they're all over the country.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed that y'all even decided to join me today. Thank you.
I'm honored that you asked me. I send love to all of you, and I will be in touch. And you have an amazing ability of putting people together.
Bye.
You have introduced me to some of the most amazing women around this country, and I love you all, and I want you to be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. All right.
Peace.
We're wrapping this up. Gotta go. So here we are, y'all. Sunday Sitting with Sisters. Thank y'all for joining. If you can, please subscribe to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at Earth Mama Network. And until then, family, we are going to be seeing you next week as soon as I can get this thing off of here. Boop. All right, family. We'll see you all next week. Peace and blessings.